Wow. Friday afternoon. What a concept. I was really pleasantly surprised to be slotted where I am in this whole lineup. First of all, because this is sort of this academic section, and we've just heard from two really brilliant guys who are doing work that really matters in the fields of psychology. Whereas I'm going to talk about crap for 30 minutes. But you can assume that, because I'm talking about these really niche communities, everybody involved in them, including me, is very mentally ill. So it's all related. The other thing I was really pleasantly surprised by is that there's not multiple streams in this conference. I kind of thought there would be. So it turns out, actually, you're all stuck here with me for the next 30 minutes. This is very exciting. The really big thing I do have in common with our two previous speakers is I have a lot to say. So I don't know quite if we're going to have time for questions. I am hoping and praying. I can talk a lot. So we're just going to see how it goes, right? I wonder where I point this. Is it here? Yes. Hello. You probably have no idea who I am, aside from Rick's lovely, lovely introduction there, but I can fix that. That's the best photo of me I have, so I use it everywhere. I'm Zelle MARCOVICCI. I'm a tech nerd, but I'm kind of cute about it. I'm an anarchist, but I'm kind of cute about it. I'm a stuffed animal collector, cute, not cute, whatever. I'm a gamer and a game developer, sorry. And I'm an educator for teens and young adults. My strongest driving value is probably that nature is cool and people are nature too. And I have two websites, because, who has just one website these days? So you can find me at zelle.zone or luckydevil.nz and also other places. If you want to mob me later, I have business cards. Not business tennis balls, sadly. I think Duncan really has us beat with that. But, yeah, I would love to be in touch. And I have to kind of start this with a disclaimer, too. This is technically an industry event, but I don't know. I may or may not have a career. I don't know. I've made a few games, and I even made them for money, but I don't actually have any desire to work in the games industry. I love creating, and I love game communities, and I'm really excited to talk about those things, but I can't help you get a job with a studio, and I don't want one either. That said, I think the gaming community is made a lot richer by people who are not necessarily just creating video games for a living, and I really think working in games doesn't have to be your end goal, right? So I actually gave a talk at NZGDC a few years ago, there I am, which is even more an industry event than play-by-play somehow, and it was called How to Fix Everything, and I told everybody to work less and stop caring about your boss, and I was like, don't give 100%, give 60%, and wow, let me tell you, people either liked that talk or they really hated it, so there's your disclaimer. That said, I do sometimes have jobs, sometimes. So this past year, I've been working with Tūhura Tech, which does free technology courses for teenagers around Wellington, and Massey University, which does really expensive courses for young adults around Wellington, and also other campuses. So these are your websites if you want to check out either of these things. I'll wait. No, I won't. I have 30 minutes booked for this talk, and I just talk so much, so we're just going to have to quickly get through a lot of nonsense, so much nonsense. This talk is not about jobs, thankfully. We're going to be talking about some fun, weird stuff, I promise. This slide is here. The thing that I have in the caption is title slide. Feel free to choose whichever background illustration you prefer, so that's a good sign. Right, you're going to hear me keep saying things like virtual spaces or virtual worlds. And you might be wondering, okay, what does that mean? And why don't I just say games, since we're mostly talking about games and this is a game conference? Well, it's because it's too limiting. Yes, we're basically discussing multiplayer online games like Animal Jam and World of Warcraft and Toontown Online. I think those are the top 3 online games right now. But it also applies to these online social spaces that aren't really games, like Twitter or Second Life or like the comments section on a YouTube video. Basically, I'm using this to mean anywhere humans interact with each other as long as it's virtual, because the metagame of real life is way too complicated, and I don't have time to talk about that. It would be a really long talk. The other thing I was sure I would definitely need to define here is metagame. You guys have definitely heard this a couple times during the conference. You might have also just heard it called the meta if you're a gamer. Metagame is one of those terms like metaphysical or metacontextual. It refers to this game outside the regular game, or the game above the game. It's play that occurs at a higher level than this regular designed gameplay, right? That's weird, so I do have an example. So there's this phone game called Cookie Run. It's pretty simple. You have these cookie characters, and you automatically run to the right. You can jump and slide to collect things and avoid obstacles. But some cookies might have like higher scoring special abilities than other cookies. They're not perfectly balanced. And maybe they're better choices in the meta. Maybe they're always better, or they're better for some situations. The other thing is that it might change the timing of the whole level if you, do things like hit an obstacle or fall into holes. And so some high-level players will do these counterintuitive things and end up with higher scores. That's part of the meta. So my argument is that things we don't think of as games also have metagames that are non-intuitive. So has anybody heard of this old site called Twitter? Maybe raise your hand. It was a really cool place. So Twitter was great. You could send these short messages. We called them tweets. People would read them sometimes and then call you nasty things. Originally, if you wanted to reference another person's tweet, maybe to call them a nasty thing, you'd link directly to it in your tweet, maybe, or you'd share it. You'd retweet their tweet, and then in your next tweet, you would say last retweet or LRT. So that way everybody knows you're referring to that thing you retweeted. Tweet. And then they added this option to do quote tweets, which embeds somebody else's tweet in your tweet, because this feature was clearly something people wanted. But people kind of started using them in an interesting way, as you can see here, where they quote tweet something they didn't agree with, and then they're dunking on it, and they're gloating when they get more engagement on their quote than the original tweet got. And that was called like a ratio, because their replies and likes and retweets are being compared to those on the original post. And you could ratio in replies too, but people were able to limit who could reply to their tweets. Well, quotes are kind of a free-for-all, so it was a really good environment for the ratio metagame. Does that make sense? Like a Cookie Run metagamer might fall in a hole to increase their score, and a Twitter user might engage with people who suck to ratio them. Meta Twitter players are farming like engagement instead of score, but it's the same. It's the same thing. Anyway, I'd like to talk about Neopets, the virtual pet site. This is just sort of a state I'm always in. It's unrelated to the talk. Neopets has a super interesting storied history, most of which is totally beyond the scope of this talk. So just know it was made by 2 university students 25 years ago, and it's been influenced or outright owned by Nickelodeon and Scientologists and crypto guys at various points since then. And it's this cute little site where you have these virtual pets, and you can dress them up and train their stats and play with them and that sort of thing. There's a huge player economy here. People will sell and trade items to each other, and they'll trade pets themselves. And it's not as big as it used to be, but it's still really popular. Lots of users, lots of relationships to manage and moderate in there. And although they're working on fixing this, support has had a really bad reputation in the past. So this isn't to talk about cybersecurity, but what if I told you that for at least the first 13 years that Neopets existed, it was storing everybody's passwords in the server as regular text, with no encryption of any kind? That would be bad. So the whole account database was leaked around 2012. And it includes usernames, passwords, emails, birth dates, IP addresses. It's been passed around on the web since probably 2015. I have it. I have a copy of it that I've cleaned up a bit, and I've put into a searchable database. So here, for example, I've searched for everybody who registered their location to New Zealand. And I can see all 300,000 accounts that met that criteria in 2012, and all the information about them. So if you played Neopets before 2012, I have your information in here. I'm sorry. So all the passwords here have been changed for years, but there's enough information here to impersonate somebody to support. And you remember how I said support wasn't very good? So accounts were getting stolen in droves. And surprising nobody, there's a serious Neopets black market driven by the stolen accounts. And for me, the most interesting part is people selling the pets, right? Since these don't necessarily have a direct value on the site, unlike currency and items. If you check out this screenshot of an illegal Neopets site, there's a bunch of acronyms and weird words that I'll have to break down. So firstly, there's this mention of RW and RN and 3L. So these all refer to the names of pets, because every Neopets name is actually unique. If you make a pet called Jennifer, nobody else can make one. And although old banned accounts were occasionally purged, freeing those names back up, that hasn't happened for over a decade. And so as you can see below, 3L stands for 3 letters. So if your pet's name is only 3 or 4 letters long, we've all collectively decided that has some trading value. And this black market website has decided that a 3-letter pet that isn't pronounceable, like just 3 random letters, is worth $10. And a 4-letter pet that you can pronounce, that's $40. And a real word, you know, RW stands for real word, like maybe a pet named Staircase or Buddy. And RN stands for real name, like the Jennifer example from earlier. These all have prices and stuff. And then what are these freaks on the side? So those are actually miniature pets that you can give to your Neopet, which are called pet pets. Yes, this is inspired. By the way, there are also pets you can give your pets, which are called pets. I'm not kidding. So these particular ones are super special because they don't exist anymore. Like the item, for whatever reason, has just been changed on the site, or maybe the art's been updated. Sometimes it's just totally been deleted. But if they're still attached to a pet, they stay forever. So that means that if you want a pet with a fat cat, your only option is to trade for one that's already attached to something. So the price variation here is because you'll be buying either a really badly named pet with a fat cat, or, you know, that's only $40, or a really good named pet for $55. And all of this is illegal, so they can't actually tell you what the names are. It's like a total gamble. It could be anything. They just have some standards as to what really bad or okay is. And then if you want to spend hundreds of dollars on a really old Neopet, you can do that here. But we actually had a way more robust and bizarre black market for quite a few years because the way pet artwork worked on this website. So, you know, the weird freaks with the old art, the old pets, you can't get them anymore, but the existing ones stay. We actually had that with pets themselves and with their art, and that was a nightmare. So 20 years ago, if you had a red Lenny, which is a bird thing, it looked like this, pixelation and all, we liked this. We didn't know any better. We thought that was great. And there was this massive update in 2007, which was driven by Viacom/Nickelodeon, who owned the site at the time, that let your pet wear clothes, but that means you have to standardize the art, right? So suddenly your red Lenny looked like this overnight, which is an upgrade. You know, I mean, this was called conversion. Your pets were converted to the new art, and broadly, that's pretty good. The problem is that Neopets has a ton of colors that can make your pet look more unique, like different poses or whatever. So if you had a pink Lenny, it went from this to this. Same pose as the red one, so it can wear pants or hold something. And if you had a fairy Lenny, which is a really expensive color of pet, you were in for a big surprise because it's been standardized to the same pose. But that totally changes how the pet feels. The old one has this weird, sly, flirty thing going on, and I don't know, you wouldn't be super thrilled if this happened overnight if you were a kid. The thing is, it didn't. So Neopets, in their infinite wisdom, didn't automatically convert all of the pets. They left a handful of color and species combinations just as they were. So we started calling these unconverted pets. They were not automatically converted. And you could choose to convert them if you really want to put pants on them, but you could never choose to unconvert them. My understanding is they did expect a little bit of outcry, but they assumed people would get over it and give up and willingly convert their pet to get those pants. And by the way, the new clothes, they all cost real money. So this meant that overnight, they actually created this whole class of pet that was limited edition and never again obtainable. And at the time, you weren't even allowed to trade them. That happened years later, so it made this frenzy of people who, like, they could never get the pet they wanted suddenly. And I was one of those. I was so sad. So as a kid, I really wanted a gray Zafara, which is, it looks like that. And then that was converted into this, which I didn't want. So that's that. Until pet trading became a thing. And again, I can't give a whole history of this because it's so massive, but what happened when pet trading became a thing is that users had to figure out how to value these unconverted pets by themselves. It's not officially sanctioned. So maybe you decide all the fairy pets that are available unconverted, which are pretty, you know, are worth more than the mutant pets, which are often a little bit gross. But not all fairy and mutant pets are created equal. Like, some are just way more popular than others, and some were really rare because the species was harder to get. And some of the art was just kind of funny looking, like, what is happening with this cute little cow over here? And then there's all these other colors that are obtainable too, and like, how do we even begin to do this? So what happened is people all organized the pets into these tiers of value based on how they were trading, and then they painstakingly hosted this information on their own personal pet pages that you could edit, and people would come together and vote on them, like, multiple times a year if they felt like pets needed to be shuffled around on that ranking system. So a user named Acellus was running the most recent guide to unconverted tiers. So here's an example of the tier 1 pets, which are the least valuable, either because they're, funny looking, or really common comparatively. Like, that's super cool, but everybody had one, so you can find lots. And then here's the highest tier, tier 10. It's like basically impossible to obtain. I've traded this high a few times, but it could literally take years. I'm in this little Discord support group, and we'd all be pinging each other like, hey, you still have a royal Bunny with a feminine name? This guy wants a royal Bunny with a feminine name. His pets might be better than your pets. Go, 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 get to him quick. And of course, the black market also had prices for all of these, right? But the really amazing thing is that none of this was officially supported by the site. Trading was happening for years before they even added the ability to send and receive a pet at the same time. Like, you just have to chuck a pet at somebody and hope they send you one back. But users wanted it, so they had to make it happen. So for better or worse, there's now an official way to get these unconverted pets. They're called nostalgic, and you buy them for real money, because of course you do. So pet trading's changed a bunch. Now it's back to valuing names and really old pets, which is why, the current black market looks how it does. But when unconverted pets were priceless, the meta was really intense. So I did years of pet trading. What's my rarest pet? It's actually this totally regular converted thing right here. It's not even a really old pet or like a rare species or anything, but it's named Bo, which is the name of my wife in real life. So it was a huge pain to trade for, because if you remember our acronyms, that's a 2LRN, and they didn't even have those on the black market website. So somebody has actually offered me $400 US for this pet, and I said no, because there's something wrong with me. I think actually I said something like, I'll let you know if we get divorced. In 25 years, Neopets has actually had quite a few, sorry, I'm just glancing at my time, little metagames like this pop up that were never intended or sanctioned or even good. My other favorite was called the Green Uni project. This is a Green Uni, by the way. Or maybe it's meant to be pronounced uni, like unicorn. That's probably more likely, but I'm never going to change. So if you want to change your Neopet's species, you can use certain items like a magical morphing potion to do it. So for quite a while, just sort of because of how rarities of items work, the green uni potion, or uni or whatever, on the right here was the cheapest morphing potion you could buy. And so someone came up with this weird idea, like, what if whenever you adopt a really valuable pet, you turn it into a green uni, and then you put it back? And what if they started recording evidence every time they did this, and it was like some sort of weird performance art or like protest? Pretty universally, Neopets hated it. But it was also really difficult to do anything to stop it, since officially when a pet is abandoned, it's fair game, right? You're allowed to turn it into a green uni if you want. And so those who participated got called guppers, which stands for, Green Uni Project. And people attached their own reasons to the movement. They were like, okay, was it to make people value their pets more? Or like, are we protesting the culture where like, if you want to adopt my pet, you have to write me a really advanced like application and grovel at my feet? Or maybe it was just like causing chaos. So it was in my case, because I did this when I was like 15. And it was just like a really fascinating thing to participate in. This is my own record of like pets I've morphed. So people would go onto the forums to announce that they were like, I'm going to abandon a fairy whatever in 5 minutes. And then everybody starts chatting, and they're like, oh, I'm going to try and grab it. I'm so excited. Here's what I'd do with it. And then I'd show up, and I'm like, hi. And there's like a signature, on my post that leads to this website. And everybody starts freaking out. They're like, the gupper is here. And for a teenager, that's like such a crazy metagame that makes you feel incredibly disruptive and powerful. Okay, it wasn't a nice thing to do. I probably actually distressed some other children. But it was a really interesting way to play. It's not like I was hacking or doing anything weird. It was totally within the bounds of the game. It just wasn't intended. Right. So, okay, as you can tell, I can literally talk all day about Neopets. I could do like 5 talks on Neopets. Somebody emailed me in the lead up to this talk, mistaking me for somebody who had done another Neopets talk, and was like, I loved your talk at Anthrocon. And I was like, I'm in New Zealand. So I need to move on before this is just the Neopets talk again. But please play Neopets with me. It's still alive. There's a plot happening right now. It's real. Right. So I'm not going to give endless examples of weird metagames, but I really want to talk about Second Life. It's another really interesting kind of virtual space that's a game, but not quite. Also, it just turned 21 years old. So here's a shot of my Yellow Dragon character dancing at the 21st birthday party event. So this picture was taken by my friend DJ Chip Buddy, who is this cool seagull guy partying in the back here on the right side. So what on earth is Second Life? Okay, it's really just like a social hangout that's supporting a whole player economy, or maybe it's a player economy supporting a social hangout. People can build things and they can customize their little characters, and they can buy and sell 3D models and texture modifications, and they can put those in their house or on themselves or whatever. And the currency is translated directly to real money, because of course it is. But there's not really anything in the way of core gameplay under it all. Like, you can just walk around and talk to each other, and otherwise people have to code their own add-ons if they want to play a game. So here's an image again from within Second Life of a poster up at a mall for the virtual skin brand Velour. We have brands. So because one of the add-ons somebody coded in Second Life that got really popular is a vampire role-playing add-on called Bloodlines. It lets you bite people and build like an evil vampire coven, except it's basically a pyramid scheme because you get extra benefits from biting people who have never been exposed to bloodlines. So now it's notorious for people going around and like harassing strangers to try and bite them. And everyone's like, oh, bloodlines again? I'm just trying to go to this virtual shopping mall, and there are vampires trying to attack me? Because that's the metagame of bloodlines, right? You're trying to build your coven as big as possible. This part of the talk is really challenging. I've been trying to figure out how to approach it for a while now. So I want to talk about another pyramid scheme in Second Life, but Second Life is a game for adults, and I really don't want this to be like an adult talk straight up. But we kind of have to talk about milk here. I'm sorry. So I'm going to censor anything that's actually not safe for work, but we are going to get a little weird, and that's just kind of what virtual spaces are like. So there's this brand in Second Life called Mused, which does a product called Milkmaid, and they also do a product called Stud Pump that we're not going to talk about at all, because I tried really hard to work it in, there's just no way. So Milkmaid is about milking, and it's also about drinking the milk, as it says here. Do you have what it takes to be Lord of the Chug? So in Second Life, they also proudly advertise that they're the original milking system since 2012. Also, they're a pyramid scheme, I mean, in my opinion. So here on the site, they list their top 5 scoreboard. What do you think about this one, Tana? Most milk drank. And then in the actual Second Life game world, here's their scoreboard for their weekly milk drinking contest. So currently Sharon XX is weekly Lord of the Chug, so, you know, good on her. And so the way you get started with the milking pyramid scheme on Second Life is you buy this actual milking pump, which is this animated attachment that I'm obviously not going to show. And they also sell the attachment that powers like the milking code itself. And then you have to milk yourself on a timer. And you also have to drink a bit of your milk, or else your calcium levels get too low to produce milk. But it's sort of an evil trap, because it's quite difficult to actually produce enough milk to sustain your calcium levels. It's kind of like real life. And they also have this separate special add-on you can get if you want to just drink milk rather than produce it. So to become a human cow is about $10 US, except that's not the only cost, because if you want to increase your milk production, there's a bunch of temporary consumable boosts you can buy, and your milk production also goes up if you're part of a family, which is where the pyramid scheme part comes in, right? Because you end up in these weird collections of human cows all being passed like these temporary milk increasing items by your milk master, who's then drinking the milk to get on the milk drinking leaderboards. Here's some of the temporary boosts you can buy to improve your milk production. It's really, really hard to take any pictures of this place that are appropriate to show on like a massive projector. But it's just so fascinating, right? So these start costing a lot of money, by the way. You can spend another $10 on a 4-pack of spring forage grass to increase your lactation rate. And these are all one use only. Like, you use that and it's gone, you have to buy it again. So you also have to buy storage tanks to put your milk in. And if your cow lady isn't healthy, then your milk can spoil, and then you have to buy a special thing to unspoil it. There's like a really astonishing amount of ways to spend money on the milk thing. And none of it is explicitly supported by Second Life. It's just possible because of user freedom, right? Right. So I swear there is a point to all this. This isn't just me sharing examples of online tomfoolery for 20 minutes, but that's mostly what it is. But the point is, delightfully, the whole internet is like this, right? So when we're designing games, especially ones with multiple players, we're going to be putting thoughts into like economy and interaction, but it's often the things we don't explicitly design for that are the most memorable, right? You can define the mechanics for like how I decorate my virtual house, but it's useless to try and design the conversations I'm going to be having in it. And even with our games have explicit stories, we can only design one level of narrative, right? But there's actually this meta-narrative, the story that the player experiences by playing the game, that'll have just as much impact, and it'll be totally unique to them. So in my opinion, it's because of the ability for users to alter these online spaces that they have such interesting metagames, right? If Neopets didn't allow us to host our own little web pages, we would never have been able to form user-created guides for anything. If Second Life didn't have robust coding options, we couldn't have virtual milking games. So even if it's not your thing, you can probably agree it makes the virtual ecosystem a richer place. So if there's anything that you take away from this stupid little talk, aside from the weird anecdotes, I would love it to be this next slide. How will your users make the space their own? How will players of your game do something wonderfully different than the players before them? And of course, if someone does develop a metagame that disrupts the experience of other players, like how do you respond to it, but also make room for it? These aren't easy questions, but they're necessary ones to create virtual worlds that are like almost as good as the real thing. So I always end on the intro slide for myself, but like forget all of this stuff, because I only need the one bullet point, which is I love the weird ways we play. Thank you.
So this lovely MLM that you're absolutely involved in, where are you on this leaderboard?
Well, the good news is I'm not currently participating in Milkmaid because it was just too much to keep up with all my other jobs. But no, truly, literally, I did. The fact is I wasn't a milk drinker, but I lied to sign up on Second Life when I was 16. Don't do this. And I was, for a while, part of the pyramid scheme. And we had this one woman who was like so insanely obsessed with she was #1 on the leaderboards, and she needed to keep that space. So she was paying like $40 to me each week for my virtual milk, and it was like I didn't have to put any money into the game for years because of this. It's awesome. I actually checked a couple of years ago, and she was still up there. She's not right now, so I hope she's okay. But